Cairo, Seattle.
It's time to get schooled with the professor, John Clayton.
Welcome to Schooled with the Professor, and today the topic is Charles Haley and players who sometimes don't get along. And what I mean with don't get along, sometimes they don't get along with the media. That's understandable. I mean, Terrell Owens had his battles with the media. I had my battles with Terrell Owens, and now we've come out of it with a good relationship. And I know he's been on the show several times, and hopefully this year he's going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Well, one of the guys that got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame that we consider kind of a mystery as far as the personality, but we didn't consider the player. I mean, he was a great player. That's Charles Haley. He'll be joining us on the podcast. And, of course, Charles is one that where he was a mystery is that we just didn't know. All we know, he was different. And what I mean by different is he just didn't seem to get along with anybody. I mean, we thought maybe it was more of a media thing. It's like, okay, here's a guy that may not trust the media. And, from Marshawn Lynch, that can go. Now, it wasn't as unusual, I guess you could say, as, say, Charles Haley, because, Charles Haley was a player that you looked at him and you go, wow, this guy can sack the quarterback. He plays at such a ferocious level. He is just amazing to watch. But you wanted to kind of get into his mind and his thoughts and, who he is, and we never really got to know him until now. He's writing a book called Fear No Evil. I think it's a must-read because what he does, he gets into what he was. I guess he was still trying to find himself through his entire 13-year football career. Find himself in a way that, he just didn't get along with people. He didn't get along with his teammates. He would get into battles with his teammates. I mean, on the field, and I know this, on great teams, sometimes you have players that are a little bit different in the sense that they may not necessarily fit in, but they're such great players, they take things to another level. I remember Ernie Fats Holmes, defensive tackle of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I covered through the 1970s and got to know him very well. Was able to watch his career, but he would get so intense on the field that Chuck Noll had to take him out because, he was beating up his own players. And you go, well, wait a second, this is a team game. But he cared so much about putting the highest level of performance. He treated practice like games, and he treated offensive players in practice like they were the enemy. And so it's like, hey, we got to pull him out. And I remember times watching him chase offensive players around the locker room. He would get so intense. This is a guy that once drove down the Ohio Turnpike because he had an incident with his wife and got into an argument and shot a helicopter down, or tried to shoot a helicopter down. And of course, he had to serve a little time. And of course, but guy that was just a great player, but a little bit different. And the team stuck with him as they should because they cared about him as a person, and he was very good for the Steelers and very much a great part of that franchise, just as Charles Haley was with the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. And so if you're a coach, sometimes you have to deal with what are some potential headaches. Guys that may not necessarily listen to everything you want to do, be a little bit of challenge. Nobody in recent memory is as good as that as Pete Carroll. Here's Marshawn Lynch, who was a great player, Hall of Fame caliber running back, and didn't trust everybody, but the teammates loved him, and the fans loved him, and of course, everybody loved him because of his style of play. His mission was to not only get the yards, but to be able to power through you and make you feel pain. And a guy like a Charles Haley was like that, and so you make accommodations. And I don't know if there was very many conversations that Pete Carroll had with Marshawn Lynch during the last 3 years of Marshawn's career, but it wasn't a problem because Marshawn performed on the field at the highest level. Pete gave him the forum to be able to do it, and it all worked out. And that's what the coaches, whether it was George Seifert, Jimmy Johnson, whether it was Bill Walsh, all did with Charles Haley because he was that good of a player. But it's so great to be able to talk to Charles and read this book, is because now we know. We didn't know. He talked about some of his issues that he had, his mental issues that he had, and how he's dealt with them. And what I'm so happy about, first, having the opportunity to be, one of the 46 voters that voted him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But second, to be able to have him now be in a good place a good place that now he is a Hall of Famer. He's able to explain all the things that were going on in his life, what it was like, the personal issues. I mean, as open as you could ever see for a guy that was really never open during the locker room period to us. And that's what it's great. And it's like, sometimes, I know it's a personal thing where it's like, okay, everybody wants to keep their privacy. And of course, that's accepted and all that stuff. But again, as reporters, we're always trying to get the fans and everybody to kind of get to know who these people are. I mean, it's like we've had the fortune in Seattle to have as open of a group as you're going to have. You know what Michael Bennett thinks and what he wants and what he's trying to go through, what Richard Sherman is feeling, what Doug Baldwin, Russell Wilson, all these different guys that have been able to express themselves and do that. And of course, the fact that they're all great players, you want to know and get to know these. And it's made, this town so into this football team. And of course, when you're talking San Francisco and Dallas, it's no different. I mean, those cities, the fans in those cities are so into their football teams, you want to know and you want to get to know. And it's like Charles was one that he was elusive. He was elusive for anybody trying to block him, and he was elusive for anybody trying to cover him. But now he's been captured, and captured in a good way. He's been captured in a way that he's worked through these issues and come out of it a better person. And not that he was a bad person, he just is a better person now. And he's one that's now reflecting and enjoying. And then to make it even better, he's helping others, trying to help them. I mean, unfortunately, he did not get the full opportunity to convert, say, a Greg Hardy, who may have his own issues, and now is to the point where he's run his career so afoul that nobody wants to bring him back in the league, and he wants to go into MMA. Well, that's unfortunate. I asked one thing for Greg Hardy to do: read the book Fear No Evil. We have Charles Haley coming up next. Charles, how are you?
Good. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Actually came back, was at the Dallas-Cincinnati game yesterday, so spent a little time with Jerry after the game, and that was kind of fun.
I was?
Yep, it sure was.
I hang out with Jerry before the game.
Oh, were you down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told Jerry, after 10 minutes, I said, man, you know what? I don't kiss so much ass now. I'm full. I got to go.
There you go. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, it's like I get to spend some time with Dak after the game. I was like one of the lucky national guys to get one of the first cracks at him. And I'm telling you, I live here in Seattle. He's a taller version of Russell Wilson.
And you know what? Russell Wilson, ain't he won a Super Bowl?
He sure has. Won one Super Bowl and was 1 yard away from winning a second.
Okay, then. When he win a Super Bowl, then we start talking about he was a taller version, right?
Okay, that's true. No, that's a fair point. I mean, you got enough Super Bowl rings to do that.
I get tired of people elevating people over 1 year.
Yeah, true. I'm with you on that. Yeah. But what I probably didn't phrase it right. But I mean, he reminds me of this of Russell in the way that he talks, the work ethic, and then how he kind of gets the team on his side. He seems to be really good on that. He seems to really be able to get the confidence of his team, because that was pretty noticeable after the game.
Well, this is a whole new game, and players, man, they respond. They don't have leaders, and then when one does come around, it's easy for guys to gravitate to them. Everybody can have your own opinions about who you want there. But, it's about winning. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, is he a winner? Can he win the big game? What about his composure? Does he make everybody feel included, in the discussion? And he does that, man. And the way he treats everybody in the locker room, he hasn't got a big head,
No.
If he reminds anybody of the Cam Newton and what's the one in Tampa Bay?
Oh, in Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston?
Yeah. I I got to meet those guys, hang out with them when they were rookies, man. And, Prescott, I go up there and bust his balls all the time, man. I let him know that, you know what, you can be as good as you want, but you ain't great till you win a Super Bowl. He's one of the few guys to say that, you know what, that's his only goal. Him and Daz, they openly say, I want to win a Super Bowl. The rest of them, man, you know what? They just want to play.
Right.
They don't have dreams and ambitions to be the greatest,
Okay, are you ready to sell your book? We got to sell your book.
Let's sell my damn book.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Joining us right now is Charles Haley, who did a book called Fear No Evil. And Charles, as we talk about your career, all I got to say is one thing. Thank you. And the reason I say thank you is that, I've been in voting in the Hall of Fame since, 1998. And obviously, it was kind of a longer wait a little bit for you. And it only came down to we had so many great pass rushers to get in. And we're so happy you got you in. But what I say thank you for is that you were kind of always the mystery guy. You were always the guy we're always trying to figure out. And again, we judge on the performance on the field, and we knew you were always a Hall of Famer, right? But it's like, in this book, you kind of explain Charles Haley because, you were kind of that stealth player, the one that nobody really knew from the media standpoint all that well, but you just played at such a high level, sacked everybody, did the situational stuff, did the starting stuff. Thank you for writing this book to kind of explain a lot of things.
Well, I'm at a different stage of my life, and it's not about being the greatest football player. It's about, the struggles that I went through is how I saw the world, and then how long it took me to figure out that I was on the wrong track, and those that I hurt, and my biggest thing is that I want to educate young men. Going to the Hall of Fame is a great achievement, but it's an individual goal, but yet it gives me a platform where I can go into players and say, you know what, these are my mistakes. You don't have to make those same mistakes, and that you have to fulfill a dream, but you don't have to fulfill your dream going through, mental illness. You don't have to go through that alone. You don't have to be afraid of that anymore. There's so many people, teams have so many resources there to help you, but first thing you got to do is admit that you got a problem.
Well, the one thing, as a player, you were so great. 100 sack career, 13 seasons. But the most important thing, whatever team you were on, was almost a Super Bowl. And you got a handful of Super Bowl rings because in part of what you did with your teammates. But again, we're always kind of mystified, and that's why it's so great. When you start talking about what were the problems and when did you finally start to identify them?
I should have known some even from growing up as a kid, because, I had no friends. I didn't like my brothers. I went to college. I had one or two friends there. I just didn't trust people. My mom was my greatest fan. She knows all my secrets. Charles McMillan, he was my college coach when I first went there, and he sent me to a counselor, Dr. Nelson, and as a freshman, so I used to go there for. We just talked. I didn't know that she was counseling me. I just knew that there's a lot of things in my head that I saw the world different than everybody else. And I suffered from PTSD. So then, that trust factor was never there, and I was an asshole. I was an asshole to all my teammates because. They wanted to be my friend. I didn't know how to be a friend. All I knew how to do is win. And that was my only goal, my only mission in life is to be the best and do whatever it took. I stretched my mind and my body to new limits. But if I had to reach out and love my brother, I didn't know how to do that. It was a lot of guys going through things that I should have reached out and said, look, don't do it. But, I was only in my own world because I believe that if I try to help a guy, now I'm responsible for that guy, and that wasn't the way I should have perceived it.
Well, like what things would you do in the locker room to your teammates that would alienate them?
You name it. Hey, I call them everything but the child of God, and some things you just can't say, man. I belittle them, man. And that's the biggest thing. You go after people's hearts, man. They don't forgive you for that. I attacked the parents. I did whatever it took to get a guy angry, so that I knew what I was dealing with. I cannot deal with weak men. I cannot deal with it because I know at some point they're gonna let me down. They're gonna let the team down. And I got to know who I'm playing with beside me, who's gonna stand with me, who's gonna run, I just wanted dogs. I wanted people around me that had my mentality. That the struggle is real. The struggle is real, and I wanted people to compete, to take jobs.
Well, now, the one thing that I'm sure because you stayed pretty much in two organizations. You stayed in, back and forth, Dallas and San Francisco, all through their great years and all with their great teams. And naturally, if you could be problematic for the coaches and the players and all that stuff, what is it that obviously gets the playing ability that allowed them to be able to stay with it? I mean, I guess that's a testament to how good you were as a player, because, if you even admit they had issues with other players, that it would cause most teams to say no, but you were too good to let go.
Well, hey, I don't know about all that. I stretch people's imagination, man. I know Jimmy. Jimmy is a warrior, man. But I think I was making his life a little bit hectic. I'm sorry about that. I like I said, man. I had one dream. And I didn't know how. I didn't know how to be a friend. And when you can add and subtract that all you want. All I did was, I read the Bible all the time. I read it, 3 times a year all the way through. And but yet I and he said, love your neighbor. I never thought of any of those guys as being my neighbor, because we would go out to practice, and I try to break that neck, and then come in locker room, and the animosity is still there, because I'm one of those guys that kick your butt out at practice and come in and tell you about it, and you don't make friends like that, and I just had great owners. When I came to Cowboys, Jerry Jones stepped up and said, you know what, Charles, hey, as long as I'm the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, you'll be a Cowboy, you know what I'm saying? So, and then Coach Walsh, man, hey, he loved me with his whole heart, man, and I knew it. I knew it because, he followed me my whole career. He asked me, what can I do for you? Before I went to the Cowboys, I went out to Stanford and sat down. He had practice going on, and he stopped to come over, sat with me and talk with me, man, and advise me, and his advice is that I ain't gonna give you no advice, and so I was pissed about that, because he goes like, if I tell you to go, you're not successful, you're gonna hate me. If I tell you to stay and you don't have success, you're gonna hate me. So he said, it's time for you to put big boy pants on, and make a damn decision. I said, oh, okay, Coach. And, I love the coaches that kept it simple. I'm not one of those guys that word magic. You sat there and talked to me for 20 minutes. I'm lost already after 2. And, Coach Walsh had a way of just being direct and to the point, and that's what I loved about it.
Talking to Charles Haley, who wrote the book Fear No Evil, and this predates you, but I covered the Steelers back in the 70s, and your story so reminds me, particularly of what you did on the field, of Ernie Fats Holmes, who, as time went on, became probably one of my 4 or 5 top Steeler players that I really enjoyed talking to and getting to know. But he was the same way. I mean, literally, they would have to stop practice because Fats was out there beating people down on the offensive line, and then they basically send him into the locker room, and then I go into the locker room after practice, and here's Fats chasing guys around, chasing Frenchie Fuqua around, and it's like, whoa, what's this? But, I mean, a great player, but it's like on the field, whether it's teammates or non-teammates, he was going at it.
Yeah, at the 49ers, I used to just go in for install. And then I would go in this little room, man, with vibrating chair, dark glasses, headphone and music, and just lay and vibrates, and just to calm me down. And then they'll come in and say, hey, do you want to come to practice? And depending on my mood is whether they want me to come to practice or not, because they knew what I was going to come. I don't have a B, C, E game. I got an A game, and I'm branded. So everybody need to buckle up, and that's where I was when I walked out on the field. If I practice, they know I'm coming to make everybody better, and and I was fortunate, we can sit here and talk about Charles, but in order to talk about Charles, we got to talk about the rest of the guys I played with, because without them impacting my life every day through their hard work and dedication and commitment, then there would be no me. And I've had some of the greatest coaches ever, Bill Walsh, George Seifert. George Seifert was a micromanager, and the thing, I look back at him now, I understand what he was trying to do. He wanted me to grow as a man and become a leader. I was one of those not verbal. I was an action leader. You watch me on the field. Watch what I do. If I say I'm gonna do it, watch me and see me do it. But I was a pit bull in practice, man. I just, I didn't have no friends. I didn't know how to be that way. And Coach wanted me to calm down and be a teammate and be a great player, and I didn't know how to do both of those. So, at that stage, I was in the thrust of my mental illness, bipolar. So, and then when he released Ronnie, Joe, and Dwayne and Keena, Eric Wright, he let all my friends go at once, man. I hated him for it, and I couldn't understand why. And so that's what set me here. But then, Jimmy and Barry Switzer, wow. Hey, man, it's golden. I had golden years.
So now, what got you from I guess you could call it Haley Island, kind of on your own, to kind of the good place that you are now? What was that transition like?
Hey, well, when your kids take you out for Father's Day, your birthday, you go out to dinner for Christmas, or I'll take my ex-wife out or whatever, and they sit at the table and they talk to each other, but they never say nothing to you. They don't even wish you happy birthday or happy Father's Day, because they're afraid that you're gonna explode. Because I've been there, and the kids will be saying something, laughing and joking, and then I'll get mad and I'll hit the table real hard. And then, the people around me get scared. My kids, the look in their eyes, man, I didn't ever want to see that again. I didn't ever want to see that again. So then I took the right steps to do something about it, so that, I want to see that love. I want to see that passion that I love my dad. My dad is my best friend. He's there for me all the time. My kids didn't want to be a part of my life, and I couldn't deal with that part of it, because, I lived in depression, where I always felt alone. I didn't want to live like that no more. I didn't want to live inside of my head. That's where I was. I was inside of my head. That was my house. And, and all the rooms were empty. They were always black. All the windows down with shade drawn.
Amazing. I tell you, though, one sad part of this is that there was a guy that came through Dallas last year, not as talented as you, but one of the more talented defensive ends currently that was in the league. And that's, of course, Greg Hardy. And so much of it seems, maybe to a degree, what he would do would be similar to you. And boy, I wish he would read the book and follow what you did to get this right, because, there's a great career that right now is in limbo.
Well, the biggest thing is there was no the video cameras, Twitter, Facebook. These guys that talk about how tough, how mean, the streets they came from. They softer than eggs, man. Because somebody say something negative, they got to get on Twitter or Facebook or whatever and attack. Me. Words don't hurt no more. You can call me anything you want to call me. I'm good. Because I'm confident in who Charles Haley is. And you know what? Hey, I've been through it. I've done it. And you know what? I've survived it. And what I try to tell these guys is, you know what? Hey, you can't explain your way out of stupid. And I tell guys all the time, I say, if you come down out of stupid, because when you're up at stupid, you think you God. Just come down to dumb so people can work with you. And all the guys that keep getting in trouble all the time is, you know what? They fighting an internal battle about something that they dealing with from their childhood. They fighting that battle. So then they go back to drugs, go back to alcohol. They got low self-esteem. They got all these things. I walk in the locker room, I see guys acting like the way I used to be. I grab them by the damn shirt and I give them two things. Either you come in here and talk to this psychiatrist nice, or come in there bleeding and talk to her. I don't care which one it is. But you going in there. And after a while, and I tell players all the time, I say, make a decision. Either I'm for you or I'm against you. If I'm against you, don't talk to me. But if I'm for you, listen. And it's hard, man. And the black guys get mad at me because I tell them the secret of life. I say, you know what? I said, we never had nothing. We come in the league. We want everything right now. Everything right now. We want instant gratification. We want the cars, the women, the houses, the jewelry. We want it all right now, the fame right now. And then guess what? The white guys come in. Guess what? They forward looking. They want to make 50 cents or another dollar on that dollar. They don't want everything right now. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to get guys to break the hell out of is stop wanting everything right now. Because guess what? If they stop doing that, then they open their minds to new ideas, new possibilities, because they reaching out. And you're networking. When you're networking, guess what? You don't network around stupid.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing, I'm happy to call you Hall of Fame, and having been in the room, pleased to be able to do this. But more so than anything else, please tell anybody how to get Fear No Evil, because, I mean, it's you educate and you teach, and this is very important. How do they get Fear No Evil?
Well, they can go online and get it. It comes out the 15th, and then, it's going to be in bookstores. I'm going to be doing signings in Texas and Virginia and California within the next couple of weeks. And I look forward to all my fans. I look forward to people just taking the opportunity to look at my successes, my failures, and then be real. The problem is with the youth, the parents know what the kids are going through, but they don't want to seek help. If they seek help while the kids are young or in college, then guess what? They won't have to deal with all the dumb and stupid in the NFL. So all I say is, if you want a good read, you want to hear the truth, it's Triumphant Books, and it'll be on the internet. All right?
All right, that's fantastic. Hey, Charles, I thank you so much. And again, not just for this interview, but explaining. This is fantastic. Thank you very much, and good luck with the book.
Hey, God bless you, brother.
Hey, Charles, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Oh, no problem, man. I know you're going to edit everything out, man.
Nope.
That's the way
I ain't going to edit anything. I mean,
I'm going to tell you, when I see you down at the hall, I'm going to hit you in the balls. Okay?
That's fine.
I know you're going to get it, brother,
I'll be looking you right in the eyes. Swing away. Okay. Hey, Charles, thanks.
Love you, man. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Wow. What was he saying? He was going to hit you in the balls?
He was going to hit me in the balls.
For what?
Good news, everyone!
It's time
to ask the professor.
I'm a cold-blooded punk.
Welcome back to Schooled with the Professor. Remember, each week you get a chance to ask me any question you have relating to the podcast. Just get on Twitter and use the hashtag ClaytonSchooled. This week, I talked to Hall of Famer Charles Haley about everything from the game of football to his mental health. This week's question comes from Deborah in Houston. She asked me, who was the most difficult person you dealt with as a reporter, and how did you handle it, and what was the outcome? I mean, I've been very fortunate because players have been very good to me through the years, and naturally you're going to have ups and downs. I mean, I've had my problems with Terrell Owens. I mean, he liked me when he was in the early days of the 49ers. Then he didn't like me. On the beat type of stuff, you're always going to have, and of course, I covered 22 years on the newspaper beat covering the NFL and teams, and so you're going to have ups and downs because players are going to get mad at you sometimes and not. But fortunately, if you're true to them and that they'll eventually come around. I mean, it's like I still remember, sometimes somebody will get in your face for something and, be mad at you. And then you come back and you say, well, here's what the deal is. I mean, an example being Joe Green one time, who had a great relationship and still continue to have, came over to me on a story that was done because Chuck Noll was talking about the latter stages of Jack Ham's career and how he's not able to do all the things that he was able to do before. And so the headline writer at the Pittsburgh Press wrote, NFL teams slicing up Ham, and naturally Joe Green and others took offense to it, got in my face, was mad at it. And I said, well, Joe, can you do me one favor? Read the story and see if the story reflects the headline. I didn't write the headline. And then fortunately, Joe was nice enough to do that and came back and said, no, you're right. You did not write that. And so I appreciate you telling me. Different times where I remember one time that, Cliff Stout, the former quarterback, a backup quarterback for the Steelers, was at a player rep, and he said, hey, we're not going to go ahead and vote for anything the NFL union is going to do. So if they're going to strike, we're going to be the one vote against if we're only the one. And I wrote that story. He was proud of it and all that stuff. And then get back, and next thing you know, he's engineering a boycott of me because he thought they had a meeting and they ended up switching over and supporting any kind of a labor strife. And the next thing you know, boom, he's trying a boycott. And then fortunately enough, Jack Lambert, like me, came over to me and said, hey, they told me not to talk to you. They told me not to talk to you. I'm talking to you. So he walked over on the field, came over to see what you need, boycott ended. So, you have ups and downs because, you're there to cover and you're not going to necessarily write all the right things that you want. I mean, you have negative stories that come out, but as long as it's done fairly. Probably one of the most unusual relationships I've had was a guy that I kind of liked, and it was difficult to cover. And his name was Brian Bosworth. Brian, of course, was a supplemental pick. When you would talk to him, just saying over and hi and all that stuff, he was good. In fact, he would always call me over, and he'd say, hey, what are you hearing on this? What are you hearing on that? And you always kind of shared that. And, of course, I said, hey, let me ask you something. He goes, nope, can't do it. Nope. Press conference setting. He would not cooperate. And naturally he would get involved with all these different controversies, whether it was, buying all these different shirts to embarrass John Elway in a game that he was playing, when it was the first game of the season against the Denver Broncos. I think he had John Elway in horse faces and stuff like that, and was selling those shirts outside, with different people. But it was always difficult to be able to cover him because, again, you couldn't get that one-on-one, even though it was a 1-on-0, because I guess I could be his one when he wanted to find out something, but in the meantime, you wanted that 1-on-1 to get a little bit more information. He wouldn't get it. But of course, it was never negative to a point. I mean, I still remember trying to track him down once when he was getting his number. He was trying to get that number 44 out there and that was an illegal number, and he was trying to get involved with lawsuits and things like that, and it was a battle, and I couldn't get the honest answer, and that was not good. Because again, the one thing that you can ask a player anything, and if they say they don't want to comment, understood, appreciate it. It's like I totally understand. But if they tell you something that's wrong and then that gets bad, then it kind of hurts their credibility with the media. But I mean, I have been so fortunate that through my entire career, players have taken pretty good care of me. You have your ups and your downs. I mean, you have guys that get mad at you, but they don't stay mad forever. So I appreciate that. And of course, it was great to be able to talk to Charles Haley and get to know somebody that we kind of knew, but we really didn't know. Now we know. That's it for this week's edition of Schooled. You can follow me on Twitter at ClaytonESPN and send me your NFL questions with hashtag ClaytonSchooled for a chance to get your questions on the air and on the podcast. If you have a minute, please let's have a review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.